Hi everyone, Queeveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to take a look at some upcoming events based on the suggestions of various subscribers. In celebration of hitting 500 subscribers, I am looking for any questions that anybody might have that I may be able to answer. So if you have any questions, please do post them in the comments below or wherever is easiest for you to post a question. The very first one that we're going to take a look at is one that is coming up this month, one that is coming up in the very near future. So this is just later this month. We're really looking at the 16th of July. I know it looks like the 17th of July down here, but we're going to move back, I hope, to the 16th of July, although we may have to travel to another location on the world. So here we go. We can see Saturn and the Moon there close together early on the morning of the 16th, and I'd like to see exactly how close together these things get. We're not just looking at the Moon and Saturn, as you may have noticed if we don't have the light of the moon in the way, there is Neptune. So unfortunately the moon is so bright that it is able to block out Neptune, or at least according to Stellarium here. Not sure why the orbit is getting displayed. I'll turn that off for now. There we go. That's a little bit better. So here we have Saturn and the moon. From here in Ireland, well, it looks like the sun is coming up before they get too close together, and of course the moon is following a different line to the curve of the ecliptic. But we don't have to worry about the Earth getting in the way or the atmosphere getting in the way if we're using Stellarium. So we can move through time with the clouds and the ground taken away, and it does look like just about there is the closest that Saturn and the moon are going to get, and from here in Ireland that is definitely during the day. But it's not too bad. We still get to see Saturn and the moon reasonably close together while the sun is still under the horizon. You can see the moon is just a little bit further from Saturn here, where it is up above the horizon before the sun. Now, of course, the light of the moon there is making Neptune very hard to see, but once Neptune is out, or once the light of the moon is out of the way, we can see Neptune there. But moving through time, I don't think we're going to get a better view of Neptune. Now, if we get rid of the atmosphere again, we should be able to see Neptune even if the moon does get in the way. Apparently not. It looks like the moon is bright enough and close enough to the planets here that its light is able to interfere even if we have the atmosphere turned off. Of course, Neptune and Saturn, Neptune in particular, moves pretty slowly across the sky, so it's going to take a while for their relative positions to change, but they do look pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if that's about as close as they are going to get. We can see now they're under the horizon there, but it looks like they're both pretty close to the ecliptic. It looks like Neptune is a little bit higher. We can double check by bringing up the ecliptic line. We'll quickly bring up an ecliptic and we'll see, yeah, they're both under the line of the ecliptic there. So we would have to travel through a fair bit of time for their positions to noticeably change, and we'll see a lot of that wiggling as we follow these things across the sky. But we can see here that Neptune and Saturn don't get much closer together. They're almost as close as they're going to get at the moment. You can see there's still a good distance there between them, even if we travel pretty significantly through time. It will come forward again. Yeah, you can see there that Saturn is just about making its closest approach to Neptune, and we can see that Saturn's doing a little bit of a retrograde motion here. We can see it's doing a little bit of a loop, it's slowing down. It appears to change its direction as it moves past the stars, so that's something that the more distant planets will do for quite a while, quite a lot, as we orbit the sun. So coming back to the date where the moon is there on the 16th, and we'll bring them back up above the horizon for us here in Ireland. So there they go, still under the ground, and we'll bring them back around. This looks like pretty much the ideal way to see them, seeing the moon and Saturn pretty much at the closest we're going to get them from here in Ireland, and we'll see them before the sunrise. So that is a nice soon one. You can get to see this as the sun is rising just here on the 16th. We can see Jupiter just about popping up there as well. Jupiter is going to be hard to see early in the month. It gets easier as we get later in the month, but we're not worried too much about what the sky is going to look like for this coming July. We're going to look a little further into the future to check out our next. We are still looking at July. We'll be looking forward to the 24th of July, and then we will be looking much further into the future, all the way up to 2037. And once we're up to 2037, we want to take a look in the constellation of Leo. So presumably this is going to be just as the sun is setting. We have looked at something happening in Leo. There we go. We have looked at something happening in Leo in the near future already, but let's zoom in here and take a look. We definitely have Venus. There's Saturn. It looks like they are, well, they're difficult to see with stuff in the way, of course. If we have trees and buildings in the way, we won't be able to see things as they come close to the horizon. So we'll get to our zero horizon. There is Mercury as well. So we've got Venus, Saturn and Mercury. We can see Venus and Saturn getting even closer together there, but we've also got I believe the star Regulus. Yeah, bright enough to shine through. So here we've got another collection of objects right next to each other, right next to the sun, as the sun is setting. Now, I do believe that this close conjunction of Venus and Saturn, this is something that I wanted to take a closer look at to see if I could get them to line up perfectly. And I do believe that the last time I talked about this close conjunction, I made a little bit of a mistake. I said that Venus was behind Saturn's moons. Well, of course, it's the other way around. Venus is in front of Saturn's moons from our perspective here on Earth. So we can see Venus there is still very much above Saturn. They're getting very close together a little bit after, or well, before the sun sets, I guess. After we followed them under the horizon, they've now come back around on the opposite side. So we want to find a place where the sun is already setting for this moment in time, but Venus and Saturn are still up. So let's start just by changing our longitude. We'll come over this way. We'll go further west, hopefully. With a little bit of jumping around, we'll get everything into the right position. Okay, so they're just still under the horizon there. We might need to go very far the opposite way. Sun is still above the horizon. We'll go a little bit further. We can see now that the sun is much further over. These objects are no longer over the east. They're starting to get over the west, so we'll move even further. I am trying to stay at roughly the same latitude, but with that steep of an angle, I don't think it's going to work. We will have to go closer to the equator as well. So let's hop down. We might as well hop down significantly while we're moving. We're a little bit too far. We'll come a little bit back, maybe around here, just under Japan. This looks good, but I do think we are still a little off. Let's bring up the atmosphere, if I can. Yeah, still above the horizon, so we'll have to go back a little bit. That's okay. These things can be a little bit fiddly, getting them exactly right. Having the sun under the horizon and everything we want to see above the horizon. There we go. So from this location on Earth, it should say it. Yep, 22 degrees from the equator, 153 degrees to the east. There we go, 22 degrees north and 153 degrees east. And there we can see Mercury, Regulus and Venus. And Venus and Saturn should be very close together here. Indeed they are. Venus isn't occulting Saturn as it did, as it will do for another far future event. We've already taken a look at Venus occulting Saturn, but that is even further in the future. This one is a little bit closer to the modern day, but I was told to take a look at the 24th, possibly because they make a nice little shape there on the 24th, and we can see a little bit of Leo. So we can see all of them separately, but it does look like there are a bunch of close conjunctions. We can see Saturn and Mercury getting very close, Saturn and Venus, Venus and Regulus, and even there, Saturn and Regulus getting very, very close. So we can see this really the whole month of July, or yeah, most of the month of July by the looks of it. we've got some really nice conjunctions going on here. Of course, this looks like they're best visible from the Pacific Ocean just around here. So if you live on one of the islands around here, you should have a fantastic view. From back here in Ireland, things won't be quite as good. So that's one event that's coming up this year, so we won't have to wait too long for that to happen. And then another event coming up decades into the future. So we'll pop back to the modern day and take one last look at that close conjunction of the Moon, Saturn and Neptune. So it's definitely a pretty close conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. They're right next to each other in the sky, but the light of the moon will obscure Neptune. It'll be very hard to see Neptune with this fuller than a half moon in the way, but we can see that as soon as that moon is out of the way, there is Neptune. Neptune is out there quite close in the sky to Saturn. So that's something we've got to look forward to really in just a couple of weeks, a week or so's time. That's coming up this month. However, the even better, I have to admit, the even better group of conjunctions coming up in 2037. We do have to wait a little bit longer for those. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. The next video we will be looking at a few more future events so that I have time to build up some questions for a question and answer video. So again, if you have any questions, do let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please do like it and do also subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. You can also read some of this information on my website, queevinscontent.ie. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.